What's going on, guys? It's Icy Rhythms again. So there was this smartass from yesterday that came on my video and asked me why I haven't been making videos on these articles where these people are discussing frame rate issues with some of these PlayStation 4 games. And at least for me, I would think the answers are very simple and you don't really need to ask me why I'm not doing these videos. It's almost as if some of these people really began gaming with the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the Wii. And then this guy made the claim that it doesn't really fit my PlayStation 4 agenda or my Sony agenda, what have you, to make videos like that, where I have made those videos in the past, but I'll come back to that in a second. I think it's just common knowledge that the first generation of games, the first lineup of games in a new generation won't look as good or perform as well as the second generation of games. The third lineup of games, it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Like the jump from, say, visually and from a performance standpoint, Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 1, where developers are a lot more familiar with the hardware and such. It just makes sense. I know that seems, to guys like this that are claiming it doesn't really fit my agenda, that I'm just trying to damage control, that, these PlayStation 4 games run at like 30 frames a second or less. I have actually read some of those articles, and I think there are actually some games on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One that are performing at 25 or even less than that. They've actually dropped down to less than that at some points, but that's just how it is. It comes with the territory. Again, first generation lineup of games just aren't going to be as good as the second generation, so on and so forth. Watch Dogs 2, which I'm sure, according to Ubisoft, they want this to be sort of their new Assassin's Creed. Watch Dogs 2 will be a lot better than the original Watch Dogs. It'll look better, it will perform better. I'm sure it'll just be a better package overall. At least we can hope, right? At least for a game like that. I love open world games. I'm hoping for the best, but I've talked about this stuff before in the past. A lot of my viewership is console-only gamers, and they've told me that they don't really care about stuff like that. They told me that it's kind of a snooze fest to sit here and listen to me go into crazy technical talk about 60 frames a second versus 30 frames a second. We all know that I can't really show you the difference here on YouTube, where the videos only play at 30 frames a second or less, and until YouTube decides to change that, there's nothing I can do about it. I would love to do performance comparisons between PC and PS3 and Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 4 and things like that when they come out, but it just doesn't really make any sense to sit here and do a lot of that or talk about a lot of that like I have in the past. People told me like it's a bore fest for them to sit there and listen to that stuff, and a lot of these guys aren't going to care anyway, okay? Even if the second generation and the third generation of games that are coming for the PS4 and the Xbox One, especially on the multi-plat front, run at 30 frames a second or 720p, and they all don't do 1080p native or whatever, these people aren't going to care. That's why they're console only gamers. They've told me that they don't care that PC can do native 1080p and resolutions even higher than that, and frame rates of 80, 90, 100, 120, so on and so forth. They simply don't care. That's why they're gaming on a console, and that's why I choose to buy the majority of my games on PC. And for those what I feel are must-have exclusives, that's what the consoles are for. That's why I'll have a PlayStation 4. That's why I will have a Wii U. Games like that I can't and will never be able to play on the PC. And those games will probably run at 720p, 30 frames a second, 1080p, 30 frames a second. Like we know the new Killzone runs at 1080p, 30 frames a second. And I stated my feelings on that the moment Guerrilla Games came out and said that they were going to do 1080p native, 30 frames a second. And I said I would much rather have 720p at 60 frames a second. But for console gamers, if they can have 1080p native at 30 frames a second, that's probably enough. You know what I mean? And let's not forget something else. There's still, 3, 4, 5 months away or something. There's plenty of time to polish these games and get them running at a steady 30 frames. If they all don't do that, that's just what it's going to have to be. It's not really these people. The general audience doesn't care about frame rate, okay? As long as it's not like running at 8 or 9 frames or something, it's not dropping down that low. They don't even really, care about or see the difference, unless they had like a side-by-side comparison, a a dev kit that was much more powerful than the PlayStation 4 running the game next to them on the same TV with the same color settings, everything calibrated as properly as the TV running the actual PlayStation 4 image. They just don't care. They simply don't care. That's why I'm not really talking about it much. And those are just the facts, man. I mean, what else can I really say? You know what I mean? So that's why I'm not talking about it. It's not like I'm trying to avoid it and it's, to suit some agenda that I apparently have. I don't think it's no surprise to anyone on here that as far as consoles go, yes, I think I would prefer Sony over Nintendo and Microsoft. In that order, in fact. Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. And I don't understand what the problem is. You know what I mean? So, I don't know what agenda it is that, I did have and don't have now, but I'm just explaining to you guys that that's why I'm not really talking about that stuff. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it. You know what I mean? That these games are not, at least from a performance standpoint, not really running the best that they probably could. But hopefully, as time goes on and these developers become a lot more familiar with the PlayStation 4 hardware and the Xbox. Now, the Xbox One does have a few games coming at launch that are said to run at 60 frames a second. And outside of some indie titles on the PlayStation 4, someone can let me know if there are any PlayStation 4 games that are said to run at 60 frames a second, because I don't know of any right now. But that's really it for this video. Pretty self-explanatory. I really didn't need to make this video because I think it just makes sense. Some of the things I was saying, it should just be common knowledge if you've been gaming as long as some of these people claim that they have and talk like they have. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out.